Good morning, and I want to thank you very much for your attendance. Today I want to address the growing concern that we, the Toronto Police, have in regards to the number of robberies being committed involving the illegal marijuana storefront dispensaries and the non-reporting of these robberies by the owners and employees. In the year 2016, commencing in June, the Toronto Police is aware that there was 13 robberies of illegal marijuana storefront dispensaries. 10 of these robberies, the suspects were armed with handguns. One of those firearm robberies, the suspects also had pepper spray. One robbery, the suspects were armed with knives. One robbery, the suspects were only armed with pepper spray. In 2 of those robberies, shots were fired within the stores by the suspects. In only 2 of the 13 robberies, the owners were charged by Toronto Drug Squad. 6 of those 13 robberies were not reported by the owners or employees, rather by customers and or persons within the area of the robbery. Since January of this year, the Toronto Police is aware that there has been 4 robberies of storefront dispensaries. In 2, the suspects were armed with firearms. In 1, the suspects were armed with knives. In one of those robberies, a shot was fired within the store during the robbery. In 2 of those robberies were not reported. 2 of the 4 robberies were not reported by the owners or employees, but rather by independent witnesses. 0 owners were charged by Toronto Drug Squad. During these 17 robberies, employees and customers have been stabbed, pistol whipped, and pepper sprayed. In addition, there is no doubt that the employees and customers have been traumatized by these violent armed robberies. An example of the non-reporting robbery occurred at the Canada Clinic, located at 213 Ossington Avenue on December 21st. 4 or 5 masked men armed with firearms stormed the storefront, ordering the employees and customers to the ground as they removed cash and drugs. A customer present during the robbery went to Canada Clinic the following day and inquired if they had reported the robbery to the police. The employees denied that a robbery had occurred, and this customer took to social media. As a result, Toronto Police 14 Division then went to Canada Clinic, where the employees were not forthcoming. They refused to answer any questions and advised the officers that their board would be in contact with the police. We know they have several videos in their stores, and they refuse the police access to their videos. Surrounding businesses, video captured 4 males carrying what appeared to be 4 garbage bags running away from this location. We have not heard from their board. Source information to the Toronto Police Service indicates there has been other robberies of marijuana dispensaries in which we, the Toronto Police, have no knowledge. I find it disturbing that the owners and operators of these storefronts refuse to cooperate, turn over evidence, and instruct their employees not to call the police or speak to the police after they become victimized. Equally disturbing to me is the recent comments made to the media by a Toronto defense lawyer that, in my opinion, is misleading and unprofessional. Quote, "Recent police raids on storefront pot dispensaries across Toronto are creating a situation where dispensary operators are left without the police protection they deserve." Quote, "These raids are creating a climate of fear that pushes the soon-to-be legal pot business into dangerous shadows." Instead of constantly pointing the finger at the police and blaming the police, I ask the question, when are the owners and operators going to take full responsibility for their actions of opening illegal marijuana storefront dispensaries? As you know, in May 2016, the Toronto Police Service executed multiple search warrants and served letters of notice during Project Claudia. Project Claudia commenced because we, the Toronto Police Service, and the City of Toronto had concerns due to the rapid increase of opening of illegal dispensaries and the lack of quality control on their products, which may affect the health and safety of individuals. Another concern was the type of products being sold, edibles. Edibles which do not fall within the categories of medicinal marijuana. The only reason to sell edibles is a marketing strategy to increase customers, which increases profit. I want to personally applaud the Globe and Mail and CBC The Marketplace for your independent investigative journalism in testing marijuana and edibles purchased from the Toronto dispensaries storefronts in the fall. The Globe and Mail investigation revealed of the 9 marijuana samples tested, 1/3 of them would not pass the safety standards set out by Health Canada. 3 samples tested positive for bacteria in a number that exceeds the federal standards, and 1 of these tested positive for potentially harmful mold. Their testing of edibles indicated that none of the products contained anywhere close to the amount of THC claimed, which is the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana that produces the intoxicating effects users seek for their pain relief. CBC The Marketplace investigation revealed that half of their samples tested came labeled with their THC content. Testing showed that many of the labels were not accurate, and many of the samples contained more THC than listed on their containers. The lack of quality control of their products and non-reporting of violent robberies in the August explosion of a storefront dispensary only intensifies police intervention to protect our communities and visitors to Toronto. This is not about the police against the owner, operators of illegal marijuana dispensaries. It is we, the police, upholding our oath of office, which includes the protection of people, all people. Now it's time to deal with the facts. Fact, we do not discriminate or hold our services from the people we swore to protect and serve. Fact, we will fully investigate robberies of all dispensaries. Fact, we will seize any illegal narcotics on the premises during the robbery investigations as we would do in any incident, domestics, neighbor disputes, home invasions, when in our attendance we observe illegal narcotics. Fact, we know from experience large quantities of marijuana are purchased from organized crime groups. Fact, we know money is a motive for criminals. The availability of money and drugs together significantly increases the attention of the criminals. Fact, marijuana dispensaries are illegal and are against the law that we are sworn to enforce. We will continue the Toronto Police Service to enforce the law until there are legislative changes have been made. It is of interest that being the authored signature on the letters of notice during Project Claudia, I field multiple calls from landlords and owners of the storefronts. Many of them advised they were entrepreneurs who wanted to get a foot in the door when marijuana became legal. Others, as you know, were adamant they were there to assist and make it convenient for people who, for medicinal purposes, required marijuana for health reasons. Fact. Health Canada procedures for accessing cannabis for medical purposes from a licensed producer is 4 easy steps. It's on their webpage. And the marijuana is delivered directly to the resident. Now that is what I call convenient. In addition, there has been no complaints made to the Toronto Police Service from any medical profession that the closing down and seizure of the drugs during Project Claudia has affected their patients and who required the marijuana for medical purposes. And the final fact, we know that reporting crime assists crime management teams of each division in Toronto to focus their resources in areas to minimize victimization and to improve the quality of life. The owners and the operators of these illegal storefronts, through their actions and some through their lack of actions, has given an open invitation to victimization. Therefore, the Toronto Police Force will continue to fully investigate robberies of the illegal marijuana storefront dispensaries with the intentions of arresting the persons involved. In addition, in partnership with Victim Services, we are offering assistance to owners, employees, and customers of the storefronts who may be suffering from psychological effects from being victimized during these violent robberies. At this time, I would like to give notice of recognition to Tracy Curley, a patient advocate for medical marijuana who reportedly worked in several dispensaries, in her open, honest discussion on Metro Morning, where she believes dispensary owners do not realize the risk involved and that they have to implement security measurements to protect employees and customers. She gets it. Now a message I want to give directly to the owners and operators of the storefront dispensaries. I realize that there is no legal obligation to report a crime, but where is your moral sense of an obligation? When will you step up to the plate for your employees, customers, who you state are already suffering health issues, and the community members who reside or employ within the storefronts from being victimized? I am looking forward to having an open, meaningful, and honest dialogue with you or your board or boards. We, the Toronto Police Service, have stepped up to the plate. Now it's your turn. At this time, I will introduce to you Bobbie, the Associate Executive Director of Victim Services, but prior to her addressing you, the media, Inspector Steve Watts from the Toronto Drug Squad will give you a perspective from the Toronto Drug Squad in regards to these robberies.
Thank you. Good morning. I'd just like to reaffirm what the staff. Well, that's kind of a hypothetical, right? It's whether, yes, it could be absolutely personal use given to your friends. I mean, there's a variety of options that you could have with that amount.
You said some of the owners were being charged, but not all. Why are some being charged and some not?
That's, once again, that's case specific. In two of the instances, the owners have been charged. And let's just back up. The reality of this is that marijuana storefront dispensaries are unlawful and illegal. They're not unlicensed. That is a oxymoron, okay? Unlicensed dispensary is an oxymoron. They are unlawful. So the analogy would be when there is a search warrant done at, a condominium, hypothetically, and there is a kilo of cocaine there. That owner, depending on the case circumstances, is subject to charge of that.
So Inspector, can you end up seizing all of these products?
I'm sorry?
You were discussing this morning that you seize all these products when you go into these dispensaries. So there's a great disincentive for these owners and operators to report this if in fact they have kilos of product on site. How do you convince them to report these crimes when they stand to lose so much money?
Well, now there's the key. Stand to lose so much money. No altruism, no medical, we're the great medical providers. This is about money, and that's the key. So what we're appealing to is the public safety side and the customers and the bodily injury that could be sustained. So let's put money to the side and let's bring it back front and center what we're talking about, public safety.
But is this the reason why owners are not reporting these crimes or cooperating with the investigations? Because they know if police come to the business, they're likely going to seize their stash and anything that's illegal, even find them and try to close them down. I mean, everything's in a gray area right now. So until there's laws put in place, they're not going to want police coming around.
But that doesn't change the public safety. That's two different arguments. That's two different situations that you're talking about.
Charge if they come to the police. Like if an owner comes to you and says, "Hey, I just got robbed," and then you come in and charge the owner, why would they come to you?
Sure. Let me just grab it, because we still want to get Victim Services here, and we're going to take a lot more questions after, but where these questions being asked, you're making the dispensaries victims. It's illegal. No, but I'm not done yet. It's illegal. Bottom line, The Prime Minister has even given his opinion that he said in December 3rd in open media he wants the police to enforce the laws. The laws have not changed. So to sit there and say, why would they phone? Very simple. They're customers ranging from a variety of ages, and if you believe them, they're already suffering from medical issues, are being beaten, they're being stabbed, they're being kicked, they're being forced to the ground, and having guns shoved in their faces. That's the problem here. It has nothing to do, so the police are taking it. It's like gambling. When you roll the dice, you take a chance. They roll the dice by opening up an illegal dispensary. And if you don't win by rolling the dice, well, in their case, we take their marijuana. We do that in any circumstance, whether we go to a domestic, a neighbor dispute, a home invasion. There is no here, because you are doing it for the greater purpose, everybody is treated the same, no matter what. So to sit here and say they're not going to report it, and that's a real situation, I say, is the wrong way, because what they do is they increase victimizations because they want the almighty dollar and the profit from the sale of illegal marijuana. So I'm going to have the victim services person speak about where we're here, and then we're going to field all the questions after, okay?
Hi, good morning, everybody. So I'm Bobbie McMurrich with Victim Services Toronto. So for those of you who don't know about Victim Services Toronto, we are a charitable, not-for-profit organization that works in very close partnership with the Toronto Police Service. I just wanted to very, very briefly outline for community members that are experiencing these robberies and assaults, what kind of reactions they may be experiencing. So some of the effects, and this is, I mean, it's very individual. Not everybody experiences all of these things. But definitely immediately following the event, someone might experience difficulty sleeping, a lot of difficulty concentrating. Hyper-awareness is a really big struggle for people, so getting back out into the world, it's difficult for people to leave their homes after a violent incident like that. So for everybody, it's different. What I really, really wanted to get across to the community is that you don't need to suffer through these things in silence. If it does go untreated, it is certainly possible for these reactions to turn into post-traumatic stress, which is really a horrible effect. So please don't suffer in silence. We are there to support the community in the aftermath of crime. So in order to reach us, we are 24/7. Our crisis response program is out in the community a lot, so if you don't get an immediate answer, we will get back to you quickly. But our direct line is 416-808-7066. And people will note the 808 number. I just wanted to reassure people that our records are victim services records. It is confidential. We are working close partnership with the police service, but we're not police employees. Okay, so if people are alternately more comfortable emailing, we're at info@victimservicestoronto.com. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We are there to support you. Thank you.
Can I ask you who you think the victims are here?
Who I think they are?
Who do you think they are?
They are,
Well, your colleagues here have made the case that some of these people aren't victims, they are criminals. Who do you think the victims are?
they're regular members of the community that are going about their business. And I mean, I can't comment other than the fact that we're there to support all victims of crime. So one thing that's important, I can't remember if I mentioned, people can call on their own. They don't have to go through the police service if they don't want to in order to reach us. That number is a public access number.
Can you tell us how many people you have actually dealt with at this point who've been present at any of these robberies?
We have worked with a couple of individuals, definitely a few.
And can you tell us what kind of symptoms or ill effects they suffered?
Very similar to what I just outlined for you. I think that what my concern is that individuals who have had previous experience with a traumatic event, certainly an incident like this will exacerbate and make them relive whatever it is they experienced in the past. Probably the most extreme reaction that people will have is the fear of going out, right? Going out of their home. So this means that they can't get to their work, wherever their livelihood is coming from. This kind of an incident can have that impact. It's very individual. Some people will never experience that, but others might, and there's no way to know who's going to be what. And the most important message is that the police service and Victim Services Toronto, want to be there to support anyone who is needing to talk about it. Please don't hesitate to come and reach out to us.
Acting Staff Superintendent Evans, we talk about the victims, people who are going into these dispensaries, but by going into these dispensaries, they themselves are conducting illegal activity, correct? So is it not up to the customers to stop going to these dispensaries? Because obviously, yes, they're victims of these robberies, but at the same time, they're conducting illegal activity by being there. So there's a little bit of a disconnect here. We're talking about these victims who are, as we heard, ordinary people, but yet they're going into a dispensary that's illegal, as you said, unlawful. So is there a message to people using these dispensaries? I mean, yes, they're supposed to be there for medicinal marijuana, but clearly that isn't always the case.
Right, well, the first thing we have to address here, when you're saying that they're going into these locations, the locations are offering a service where people honestly believe that there is going to be the legalization of marijuana, so they want to get their foot into the door first of all. So we ask these people to understand through this media conference, number one, what has happened in these robberies, the victims, and also to the customers. We also want to make it clear that we have services to offer to them, because we're never going to stop crime, whatever we can do. But the question I really have to ask is, how many of these customers do not realize that the storefronts never called the police? Okay, so most people would assume that if people are running in there with guns, assaulting people, firing shots, that the police were going to be notified. That's a common sense conclusion. But it's obvious that in our discussion with you today, people are not, from those locations, are not notifying the police. And what we have to realize here, people, is when we are aware of crimes, especially these type of violent crimes, whether it's a bank, we sit there as a Toronto police, we analyze where we're going to draw our resources to, because we want to address victimization by minimizing it and also to improve the quality of life. If we are not aware of these violent robberies that are occurring, we're in a position that we can't be reactive to it. So I'm just saying that where we go is, I know customers go in there, and as you know, we don't charge and haven't charged any of the customers going in there. Our focus is on the storefront, dispensaries, and that's where our focus is going to be.
And you're not necessarily charging all the owners or operators. You said of the 6 that were reported, you only charged 2. Why is that?
No. What I said is out of those locations, there was 2 that were charged in 2016.
What were they charged with?
That'd be the answer.
Just clarify that. 'Cause
Okay.
there were 6 reported.
All right. What I'm saying is that we still do the investigation, whether they go in as a robbery occurrence or an incident occurrence, we are still going to investigate them. So in regards to the people not, you have to ask that question, and I kind of lost it in thought, so.
Okay, so for customers who are going in, are you saying they're unaware, first of all, that these are illegal operations? You said they're going in believing that this is kind of legal.
No. What I'm saying, people are down the road because they saw that it was part of that there is going to be legalization someday, which we have no end date when it's going to happen. Most of them are going in there because they want to have the availability to purchase marijuana and edibles. The biggest thing we're saying to you is that they're in a position is that they expect, as any place going into any store, proper customer service. By not reporting your customers having pistols put into their face, being kicked or pepper sprayed, it doesn't fall within a proper business.
Why are they not all being charged? The operators that are reporting are not all being charged, you said, right?
What's that?
You said
All the owners were not charged because as the Toronto Drug Squad do their investigations, a case-by-case investigation. And I'm going to be honest with you here. Some of these robberies, before the police were notified of the legitimate ones, the employees grabbed all the drugs and ran out the store with the drugs before the police got there. So in some of these locations, there was nothing there but a few strands, a few bags, whatever. So they're also being instructed by their store owners to run with the drugs.
So are you asking these owners to shut down, or are you offering them any type of leniency whatsoever?
There's never going to be leniency, but what there's going to be, as I said, an open discussion. My door's open because we have to collectively work together, no matter whether doing something illegal, but we have to work collectively to minimize the violence, minimize the victimization, and improve the quality of life to members of Toronto.
What is the next step for police? How do police crack down on these robberies if they're not being reported? And if they are reported in some capacity, then they're not cooperating with the investigation, like not handing over video and stuff. So how do police stop these violent crimes from happening in our neighborhoods?
We're going to continue to do investigations. We're going to work with our sources on the street. We're going to be looking through all the avenues we can. Even if we have lack of cooperation, we're going to continue. It's a very clear message. We will continue. In the methods we do, I won't be disclosing them, but we are. So I want to let the storefront owners know this is not because you don't report it. I want them to be well aware we are going to be actively investigating it. And if they don't want to cooperate, and then we're going to sit there and name them as we did today through the media, because this is where people really have to understand, whether or not you want to or not, it's you, the media, that delivers our message worldwide. And this is not the only problem that's happening in Toronto. We're finding in our counterparts, there's other police services that are also having robberies of these types not reported.
Will you be executing more search warrants?
We will continue to execute search warrants. We're going to
Help that though?
You got to be kidding me. You're going to help that? We're talking about people stabbed, shot at, pistol whipped, and you're worried about because they're going to be afraid the reporters are going to seize their drugs.
No, I'm wondering if you're going to go in and do more raids and
We are going to continue our job until we have legislative changes that make it different for us.
Are you gonna enforce on that?
Okay, we just got to, let's get,
Given what's happening in Toronto on that point, sir, are you calling, or do you think the federal government should speed up the process to give some clarity here so these kinds of situations don't happen?
well, to be honest with you, if you look at the media on December 3rd, the Prime Minister of this country gave clarification.
Is this organized?
But the rules haven't been put into place. This hasn't been legalized yet.
That's my point, and your point. It hasn't been legalized. It's still illegal.
But do you think that the government should be doing more?
No. I think that what people should do is follow the rule of law, and then when changes are made, adapt their business situations then.
Is this organized crime hitting these places, gangs? You say people with pistols, they obviously have a plan.
Well, my concern is that it could be anywhere from gang members, especially we see, if you know, in the hold-up squad, when Staff Inspector Earl has addressed you on numerous times, we have certain groups of guys that come in, and we call it gang takeovers, like the one on Ossington. There was 4 to 5 masked men with guns, all armed with guns. To me, that's signs of from experience, of gang activity. So we're not just talking, I believe, and I tell you that at the end of the day, because of the lack of their non-reporting, their lack of their cooperation with the police, they open the door, because it's known out there within the streets of Toronto that many are not reporting the crime.
Any suspects? Sorry.
Yes, there's been arrests made in several of these robberies. We still have many outstanding people, and that's due to because we're not getting the video from within the store, and we're not getting any additional updated information from the actual victims of the store.
Any reason to
Stop
believe
going if they
people
realize that the dangers are there?
We
Because
got to
you just
slow
said
down
to
here,
us-
people. Go ahead.
Do you think people would stop attending these locations if they were aware of the dangers? Because you said that you don't believe most people are aware that robberies are occurring quite frequently at these locations. Do you think that would actually stop customers from?
I don't believe at all for 1 minute it's going to stop customers, but it's going to have some customers to have a little bit of a thought process before going inside. Because many of them, for whatever reasons, they want to have, the marijuana. Some, they say, is for medicinal purposes, which I doubt because there's a process already in place. But I think most people after this media conference are going to have a little bit of hesitation. And the gentleman that went to social media after the Ossington robbery, with social media, we're going to get more of that coming out there because in our offer now for victim services, it's really going to be, today's a wake-up call for many people.
Are you encouraging people who witness this or are victims of it to not rely on these dispensaries to report it, to call police?
Yeah, it's evident that we need to rely on them.
Is it fair to say that gunmen are your biggest priority or concern? Or is it both, the owners that are running illegal businesses and the
The
gunmen?
major concern we have is, as you know, when you're going into a robbery, as we have in Toronto, when they fire a shot, it's a quick indication to us that we have to address this quickly, because it indicates to us and the police that these people are not hesitant in using their firearm. What we're saying today is that the storefront owners, knowing that this is happening, they have to step up to the plate and take measurements to stop the violence, to protect their employees and their customers and the community members who reside within their storefronts.
It's a matter of time before someone is more seriously injured.
There's no doubt in my mind there's going to be some. We already had 2 people stabbed, and it's not where when the person went in there and stabbed them, he decided, well, I'm going to stab him in the arm. The suspect stabbed them to stop them from making any movement on the ground.
Staff Superintendent, on January 4th,
Go ahead.
Employees or customers were stabbed in that case?
I have to get we'll get the sheet, I'll get back to you in a minute there. I believe it's going to be 2 employees. I'm pretty confident about it.
Given how strong, your words are very strong today to both customers and owners, but even as strong as your words are, until the federal laws are changed, isn't it just likely that this whole thing will continue until those laws are on the books? We're just going to see this over and over again?
So you're not going to report it?
Well, you're going into this unreported. You really got to wake up here because people are getting stabbed, okay?
Well, I mean,
I'm not going to go into it, but over here, I just want to say to you that we're not interested in what the federal government's doing. Our interest is what is today. And today is what we're going to react upon. So we can sit there and say it's a gray area, it's a clouded area. No, it's not. It becomes a gray area when they're in the middle, right in the legislation is being distributed out to the general public. But right now, it's clear, very clear. So there is no gray areas.
Can you just tell us how much this
You guys, you got to understand, let's do one at a time.
It's clear, you're absolutely, it may be clear, but the point is that until this legislation comes on the books, this is going to keep happening over and over again.
Correct. If the store owners are not going to cooperate, 100%.
Can I just ask you the monetary value? Because we've been talking, you said that some of these places are bringing in $30,000 a day and that they've got several kilos of marijuana on site. What would the value of the marijuana be? Kilos of marijuana, what would they go for? Because that would be something you would understand.
Just bear with me for a sec.
Kind of money that these thieves are incentivized by.
I'll just clarify one point for the staff super. It was the employees that were stabbed at that one location. It was 2 employees. And the other incident was a customer being pistol whipped. Getting back to your question, a kilo of marijuana, $2,000 to $4,000. So you can do the math on that depending on the amount.
You would have 2 or 3 kilos in a store or more than that? Like how much would you
It
find?
depends on the store. It's really case specific. Depends on the store.
But some of these places are making tens of thousands of dollars a day.
Absolutely.
So this is a huge incentive, wouldn't you say, to the criminals? I mean, the criminals that are robbing them.
That's why we're here today.
And are most of these stores, do they accept cash only? Like, do they take credit cards and debit, or is it mostly like actual cash?
It varies. It varies.
But it's a lot of cash.
It's predominantly cash, yes.
So I don't know who can answer this, but the cannabis culture on Queen Street was, they were robbed on January 4th. In this list, it says they did not report. In an interview she just gave to our online people, she said she did report. Can we clarify that? And then she said the next day they were raided and all of their marijuana was seized, but they were never charged. I just want to clarify whether or not they reported on January 4th.
This information that I gave you came from the Toronto Police occurrences, and it was reviewed, and it was given to me for the updated information. So right now, I stand by what is being reported to you in the media of the information.
So who reported it then? Was it a witness or?
I'd have to go through the occurrence again, but I just want to give you guys the updates.
Inspector Watts, how frustrating is this for you to just keep running into this over and over again?
I've had that question before. And you know what? We're here to enforce the law as it stands. We enforce the CDSA, the criminal code, and we're subject to that, and that's all I'll say to that.
Detective, do you find that just, on average, these dispensaries, do most of them have security systems, security protocols on their stores? Cameras, cages, whatever?
Safes?
Once again, it's location specific. A lot have safes, a lot of them have cameras, but, if they're not providing the camera footage, then that's irrelevant.
Is there any given like subpoena? I don't know how it works. Like, can police get a warrant for camera footage if they're served and some violent crime happens? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I won't get into specifics of certain investigations like that, but it just makes it very difficult to work those kind of cases.
So you mentioned that all of these shops are illegal, but only 2 have been charged. I'm still trying to wrap my head around if they're all operating illegally and unlawfully.
Right.
Why are only 2 of this list being charged, even especially in some cases where you said some of the product you knew employees had scrammed with? So why aren't more being charged?
Well, that's case in point. If the product is removed from the location, there's no charge, right? There's no charge. You need substantive product to lay a charge.
So is that the only situation in which the charges aren't being laid, when they've taken all the product away?
Each location is different. Like I said, each location is case specific, whether people are providing, you know, every location is different, and that's all I'll say to that in terms of those investigations.
Out of the 6 reported then, 6 have been reported since July of last year, you said only 2 were charged. So can we assume that in the other 4, the product was missing or gone by the time you got there?
Well, yeah, on a variety of, there's a different cases for each location.
But
Yes.
6 of them you went in after the robberies and only 2 were charged, correct? And they were charged with possession?
Possession for the purpose, correct.
Okay.
Given what's happening, is there, do you expect to do more to try to close these places down as was done last year?
Well, as the staff super said, the Divisional Dispensary Enforcement Initiative, it continues, and we're continuing on enforcing the law, which is, as I said prior, those dispensaries are unlawful, and we will continue our enforcement of that. Okay?
And you're still executing about a search warrant a week, you're saying?
Well, that's what
Sort of the average.
it averaged out. That's what it's averaged out to recently. So.
You mentioned earlier that you think this is happening more. Do you have any sort of idea as to how much this is happening and you guys don't know, or have you been made aware, or just seen?
Like what's
hearing
going on
about it?
over there?
No, that would be anecdotal to guesstimate at that. I won't do that.
That concludes today's conference.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks.